Hello, beautiful souls. My name is Jessie, and welcome back to another episode of Rewire to Inspire. The show where we'll dive into self-love, learn tangible ways to rewire the brain, and discovering your soul's purpose. The goal of Rewire to Inspire is to encourage listeners to begin doing the hard work, to get curious and open to maximizing your life. Our mindset shapes how we live. Depending on life events, traumas, and personal experiences, our mindsets are all vastly different. However, one thing we all have in common is the ability to rewire our mind, to change the narrative, and to pivot our lives. I hope you leave each episode with the belief that you are so worthy to live a life true to you. I look forward to chatting with you every single Tuesday and Thursday and helping you grow exponentially in all areas of your life. Without further ado, here's today's episode. Hello, you guys, and welcome back to my podcast, Rewire to Inspire. I'm your host, Jessie Brown, and I am so excited to be jumping back on the microphone with you all for episode number 86. If this is your first time tuning into Rewire to Inspire, welcome. I am so happy to have you here. This is a safe space where we talk about all things mental health, self-love, inner child healing, and discovering your soul's purpose. If you are tuning back into today's episode, welcome back. I hope you are all doing so well, and as always, so blessed and grateful to have you here. I hope you're all having an amazing last week of December. Happy Thursday, or whenever you're listening to today's episode. New Year's is just around the corner. I don't know about you, but I am so excited to embark on the new year. Tuesday's episode was all about some things we have to establish before we set massive goals. Often with New Year's comes setting new goals, and so I wanted to highlight some things in which we kind of have to acknowledge before we can set big goals so that we're able to be the most successful in setting our goals and to follow through with them as possible and not just setting another goal just to set one. So if you haven't checked out that episode, I definitely encourage you to. But nonetheless, I am excited about today's topic. Today is definitely one that I want to give a little trigger warning to prior to diving in, because on today's episode, we are going to be talking about suicide. We are going to be talking about mental health. We are going to be talking about just some tougher things. And so today's topic is about the conversations that no one wants to have, but that we all need to. So the reason that today's podcast episode surfaced was, honestly, I was sitting in my office the other day and I just felt this intense rush into my heart of feeling like our world's just needing more permission to feel our feelings and to have open conversations without the shame associated to it. And so this furthermore stemmed because we often view the holidays as a time to be happy and to be jolly and over the moon and merry and bright and fuzzy and warm and greatness. But the thing is I'm realizing that a lot of us aren't feeling that this year, and I don't have the answers as to why that is, but every single person that I've talked to has expressed that they're just not feeling it this year. And today's episode is again more so about the conversation of suicide, but I think even just the fact that collectively as a whole we're feeling lower. Why is it that there still holds so much shame around mental health and mental illness and seeking support and seeking therapy and seeking healing and just sense of community and belonging and acceptance without the shame? We all try so hard to put on a mask and a face and to just pretend like we're okay all the time, and then we get home and we're feeling a certain type of way and we're carrying this weight around all the time. And if I can even just help one person have the permission that you don't have to be okay all the time. We don't have to be happy all the time. We're human and we have so many emotions. I have a wheel beside me of emotions, a feelings chart. And just on that chart alone, I'm not sure, I could guesstimate there's definitely over 100 emotions on that wheel. And yet, whenever we're out and about and around other people, we just feel this pressure to be a certain type of way. And I'm realizing that that's actually causing us more of a detriment than if we were to just acknowledge our feelings. Now, I'm not saying it's okay if you're in a bad mood to go out in public and take that out on other people. Absolutely not. However, you don't have to fake being over the top and being excited and being in a good mood and feeling like You have to tell everybody you have your whole life together when none of us do, and it actually just makes us feel even worse when we have those conversations. So I just wanted to highlight that even prior to getting into more of the deeper stuff, because we're all human and we're all experiencing things, and we never know what anybody else around us is experiencing. We never know if someone's on the verge of giving up, and we never know when someone's on the verge of just being at their capacity, and vice versa. Someone might not know when we're at our capacity, and saying one thing can just really cause us to, feel super overwhelmed. And so you never know what someone's triggers are either. You never know how something you say or how you respond or something you do could make somebody feel, and they might remember that for the rest of their life. So just something that I want us to remember, because we can often assume that based on someone's tone or their words or their actions that they're just rude, and we want to snap back and we want to lash out. But what I've realized is anytime someone isn't in a frequency of joy or happiness, it's likely because something is going on beneath the surface. And yesterday, my partner and I were at the mall, and we were just doing some last minute shopping. And we went to one store in particular, and the retail worker that was there had kind of said a couple sarcastic comments. And me and my partner actually thought they were quite funny. But come to find out, she actually ended up telling us at the cash, sorry for anything I said. It's just been a really, really long holiday season. Somebody was super rude to me and my partner earlier in the day, and I'll be a lot nicer in the new year. And a part of me was like, wow, the self-realization in that moment was huge. And the fact that she recognized that she might have been projecting her feelings onto me was just honestly refreshing. And it just made me, I kind of mentioned to her, I didn't take any offense, but I could see how maybe somebody could. And thank you so much for recognizing that. Please keep doing what you're doing. You have a heart of gold. That's amazing. And I'm just realizing that that's often what happens. We perceive something and then we end up lashing out. Luckily, in this instance, I didn't view it as something rude, but there's definitely been times when someone said something in a certain tone, and to me that tone means danger. To me that tone means anger. To me that tone means they're being sarcastic or rude, and we internalize things. We all internalize things so differently. But basically the message of all that is we all have something going on beneath the surface. Some of us more intensely than others, and that's going to ebb and flow, and that's okay. But oftentimes when we just see that somebody's jolly or happy or whatever, we assume that they're just happy and they got their life all together and everything's great. And we often base that on social media, where all we post is our highlights and our great things, never the downfalls of how we're actually feeling. And so a huge example of this that came up that I know is very hard to talk about, and something that I know the world is shocked by, and that was the death of Twitch, who was on the Ellen Show and was an American dancer who died by suicide just a couple weeks ago. And I know that the media was blown away, because anybody who has seen Twitch on Ellen's show or just on any platform, he always appeared to be so happy and outgoing and just jolly, and his frequency, he always just looked like he was glowing. But that's just a great example of how we never know what's going on beneath the surface. Robin Williams is another amazing example. And again, these are just people that we know of. But this is happening all around us, and it's happening every single day. And it's something that we don't talk about. Suicide, I know, is a hard conversation, but it's one that we need to hold, and it's one that we need to have, because the more that we're able to have these conversations and create capacity, the more that we might be willing to talk about it if we're in that headspace and we're feeling that. And the reason I share this is because, again, you literally never know what's going on internally for someone. One of the most common things I hear people say is, I didn't even know they were hurting. I didn't even know they were having a hard time. I didn't know that they were struggling. And self-harm and suicide, again, obviously aren't easy things to talk about. And there's also a lot of shame and blame that surrounds both of those things. And my goal of today's episode is to just spread awareness and to get more comfortable so we can become more comfortable having uncomfortable conversations, because having those conversations are never going to be easy, especially if they're with someone that you love and care about and it's the last thing you want to think of. But imagine if we don't have those conversations, what could potentially happen? And again, this is not for blame, and again, a trigger warning for anybody who has been affected by anybody who has died by suicide. Just know that you're not alone and that your feelings are so stinking valid, and I hope that you know and know that in your heart, in that this is something that is an internal battle and something that we cannot change for other people, but we can learn to rephrase and have conversations openly with those that we love. And I was doing some digging on statistics around suicide today, and I do honestly think that this number is lower than what I think it actually is. On average, it says that 10 Canadians die by suicide per day. And as much as that's already 10 too many, I still honestly feel like a lot of those are unreported or is declared as something different. I think that this number is actually significantly higher. And doing the math of that, that's just over 3,600 deaths by suicide a year in Canada alone. That's just in our country, in my country that I live. And then I was doing further research, and it basically expressed that between 2014 and 2018, there was 4,100 suicides that year, which means that over 400,000 people are bereaving suicide loss each year. That is way, way too high of statistics. And so it's just interesting to me, and something that really frustrates me is that they declare that there has been 628 deaths of COVID. And if you look at suicide numbers, they're 5 times higher than that. Yet that's not what's in the news. That's not what's talked about, because it's not a glamorous topic. It's something that we want to brush beneath the surface and pretend doesn't exist and pretend it doesn't happen. But I refuse to stay silent, and I want to just be that one voice, if I can be, to normalize these conversations, because it happens too often for it not to be a normalized conversation. The stigma in which surrounds these topics is so frustrating, and that is why I started my podcast, because I'm on a global mission to rewire how we view and treat and approach mental health, especially for men, women as well, but men in and of themselves are 3 times more likely to die by suicide than women. 3 times. Women are more likely to pose self-harm. Men are 3 times more likely to die by suicide. That honestly breaks my heart to even wrap my head around that, because men are one of the most stigmatized genders when seeking mental health support. Yet statistics don't lie. They do lie in a way, but those numbers don't lie. That men are 3 times more likely to die by suicide than women. Yet they're the most stigmatized. Something needs to change. And I'm going to go through a couple things today of things that we can do, but it takes a community. It takes each other. It takes having these conversations. It takes breaking the stigma. It takes educating ourselves. It takes being uncomfortable so that we're able to learn and grow and evolve as a society. I'm so passionate about this episode and about this topic because I know what it's like to have those thoughts. I've posed self-harm on myself. I've wanted to die by suicide before. And that's a hard thing to say because I know people that love me and care about me listen to this podcast. But there's no point if I can't lead by example of saying that I've been there. I've been in that dark place when everything within me is telling me there's nothing left. It's time for you to go. There's nothing here left for you. Nobody cares. You hear all those things in your mind when you're in that headspace. And I felt so shameful about those thoughts that it almost made it worse. And I didn't really feel like I had a safe person that I could tell that to because I was so worried about hurting their feelings if I were to share that. And I also grew up in a family that views suicide as something that is selfish. And to me, suicide is the most selfless act that you can do, because how can something as horrific as taking your life be selfish? And I understand that that leaves people that love and care about you to bereave your death. However, think of how someone must be feeling for that to even be an option in their mind. And so I remember hearing that for the first time, one of my family members saying suicide is selfish. And it just irked my whole being before I even really understood anything about mental health or about mental illness or anything. I just remember feeling like, that's so wrong. How can we say that? How can you believe that? I get the context again in which that comes from, and I don't mean disrespect, and I mean all the love, because we all view things because we care, and the reason we say that is because you're left with family who love and miss you, and that I know that that was communicated in maybe a malintent way, but actually beneath that was just somebody expressing that they would be really sad if they ever lost someone that they loved. But I think that knowing these statistics, knowing these numbers, we really don't have any other option other than to have these conversations and to recognize that this is happening too frequently, and it's happening all around us. We see it in the media with people like Twitch, and we're like, oh my gosh, and we grieve that for a minute and then we forget about it. Let's not forget about it. If it happens 10 times a day, think about that for a second. Think about if that was someone in your circle, someone that you know. We often dismiss these things until they affect us directly. But those are human beings, and those are human beings' lives that deserve to be here. And they deserve, each of us, we each can have these thoughts. And again, I'm a little miscued in today's podcast episode because this is a topic that is very hard to talk about, because it just makes me really sad, and I'm very passionate about it because I know a lot of people who have lost people to suicide. I have lost 3 clients to suicide during my role as a social worker, and it is hard, and it's a hard topic, and everything within you wishes that you could go back and if you could say something different and do something different. But even just starting these conversations is a step forward, and it is raising awareness. And so I sat there this afternoon and I tried to think of a list of what you can do. And for a while I drew a blank because I'm like, I don't have the answers to this. Like typically when I have my podcast, I share an issue and then I give a solution or something you can do. And with this, it took me a little bit longer to come up with, but I did come up with some things. And so the first thing that I came up with is to check in with yourself first. We often try to suppress our emotions to tend to those around us, right? We all freaking do this. But reminder that you're no good to anybody else if you're not good for yourself first. And again, there's spectrums to this of where we kind of sit on this. But checking in with yourself every single day, if possible, not only helps to form a better relationship with yourself, but it also allows you to widen your window of tolerance. It allows your mind-body connection to become stronger. It allows you to be able to name your emotions so you can tame your emotion. Checking in of where you're at so you're not pouring out of capacity in which you do not hold. So things that you can do is to check in with yourself first. Tend to yourself first. What are you needing? How are you feeling? What's missing? What are you craving? What's too much in your life? What's too little in your life? Checking in with yourself first. The second one that I have of things that you can do is, if you're the one that's feeling down or depressed or sad or suicidal, know that you're worthy of support. I know in those times, shame can take over and we can feel unworthy and we can feel helpless, and everything within us is telling us no one wants to hear our problems, we're a burden, we're whatever, we're this, we're that, we're the other thing, because I've told myself all those things. But I promise you that your friends and family, or even a complete stranger on a texting app or on a suicide hotline, whatever it is, would rather hear your voice than to find out that you have passed. It's okay to ask for help. I know it can be scary, and I know it can be hard of wondering what people might think of you, but I can promise you that people would rather you share with them how you're feeling and if you're struggling than to find out that you have passed away. So again, I just wanted to give permission that something that you can do is, if that is you, know that you're worthy of help, know that you're deserving of help, know that those resources exist for a reason, because you're not the only one who's ever had those emotions before. You are not alone, and I promise you that, although I know that in those moments it can feel like you are, and I know it can feel so intense. So just know that you're worthy of that. Number 3, which is one that, again, I'm always passionate about and why I have a podcast, and that's to be proactive in your mental health. We often wait for it to pile up and for us to explode or for us to be at our end or for us to just feel like we're ready to give up. How can we be more proactive in our mental health? Finding a therapist and a counselor and seeing them every 2 weeks is a great time frame, or maybe even every month, just to have a check-in, just to have that safe space. If you ever do need to vent, if you ever do need to get anything off your chest, seeing a therapist or a counselor should be no different than going to your doctor proactively, which is a whole topic in and of itself. But we're such a reactive society. We wait for something to happen to do something about it instead of being proactive with little things. So maybe it's like forming a snowball, right? As you keep that snowball going, what happens? It gets bigger and bigger and bigger till eventually you can't move it anymore. You can't do anything with it anymore. But if you were to just slowly, a little bit at a time, it doesn't end up getting as big. It's just slight little snowflakes instead of rolling a massive ball down a hill. Our health is no different. Our mental health is no different. Being proactive, writing things down you're grateful for every day, checking in with yourself every day, checking in with a friend every day, seeing a therapist twice a week, once a month, whatever works best for you is so stinking important. The next one, number 4, is to check in on those you love. Check in on those around you. Again, making sure you are okay first, and you're checking in on yourself first and being proactive in your mental health first. Then, checking in on those that you love and that you care about. Saying things like, how are you feeling? You know I love and care about you, right? How can I support you? I noticed you're blank lately. I'm wondering if you're needing anything. Hey, I just want to open the door if you're needing to, tell me anything. You know that I'm here for you, right? There's ways that we can frame things that allows that person the permission to come forth should they want to without feeling like they have to. My least favorite thing when I'm feeling down and out is when someone asks me what I need, and it's like, to me in that moment, it's like they want me to answer that so they can feel better. In those moments, I often don't know what I need, and I like to have suggestions. Would it be helpful if I did this? Would it be helpful if, I helped you with that? There's ways that we can frame things that is advocating for that person instead of making them tell you what they need. Although some people like that. Some people like to be told and to tell straight up what it is that they want. So again, you know the person best in which you are talking to, but a great way that you can frame it kind of across the board is just, I love and care about you, right? And seeing where that goes. Their answer will kind of tell everything of how they're feeling. And if also you're sensing somebody is withdrawing, or you feel like they're acting weird, or you feel like they're just off, out of character, don't be afraid to ask them straight up. Especially if you're noticing like a trend of somebody withdrawing, acting out of character, maybe their hygiene's a little bit lower. There's lots of indicators. Don't be afraid to ask the question straight up. Are you considering suicide? Are you thinking about suicide? Are you thinking about self-harm? That is one of the first things that you learn in Assist, which is basically a suicide intervention training that you can take. And one of the first things that they encourage you to do is to just straight up ask the question. Don't bounce around it. Don't shame it. That makes it worse. Straight up asking it is going to get you to an answer much quicker than, are you good? Like, are you okay? It builds a lot of shame and it builds a lot of unassurance. So make sure that if you're seriously concerned about someone, you just ask the question straight up. Although I know it can feel uncomfortable and that person can respond in lots of different ways, especially if there is shame, but it's better to ask the question straight up than to not ask it at all. Number 5 is to be kind and mindful that we all have stuff going on and we never truly know what someone's feeling or where they're at. So again, I kind of already touched on that one, but just a reminder that the world's just feeling a little heavier lately. And yes, there's pockets of amazingness and I'm so grateful and there's so much beauty out there and love out there, but I do feel like collectively there's just kind of a cloud over all of us and we never know how dark that cloud is for someone on one day. And so if you have a little more capacity one day, how can you spread extra kindness in the hopes that on the days that maybe you're feeling a little less than, somebody will return that favor in return? Whenever I'm feeling just an extra dose of energy, I always try my hardest to tell those around me that I love and care about them. If I'm out and about, telling a retail worker they're doing an amazing job, telling my server, you're so awesome, like, thank you so much for what you do. Little words like that and little acts of kindness go so far in just someone feeling appreciated and feeling seen. Even just saying something simple as thank you and you're welcome, or holding the door for someone, putting the cart back for someone at the grocery store. There's literally so many things that we can do that can just make someone's day. And I'm someone who definitely believes in good karma and bad karma. And I truly believe that an act of service with expecting nothing in return will eventually come back. It's just the law of attraction. It's how it works. Put out good vibes, get good vibes in return. No, that doesn't mean you have to be perfect all the time. However, if you have extra capacity one day, why not use it to make somebody else's day better who might be feeling a little lower than usual? Number 6 is to never shame someone for opening up or being vulnerable. And I hate saying especially men, but I do want to throw that in because often when men get emotional or cry or open up or get vulnerable, our instinct is like, whoa, why are you being so weak? That just drives me insane. To me, if a man is crying, I'm like, wow, I'm so thankful that you trust me and feel safe enough in this space to let your emotions out. How cool is that? We hold so much blame and such high standards for different genders and different ages and just different this and that. We're all human and we all experience emotions. And we need to stop shaming things that person A feels when person B also feels it, but it's not okay when person A feels it, but it's okay when person B feels it. It doesn't make any sense. It's all societal pressure. It's all sexism. It's all marginalization. It's all just misogynistic. It's just stupid and it doesn't make any sense. And I'm running out of words, but don't ever shame someone who is opening up to you. And if you don't have the capacity to carry what they're saying or to hold the weight of that, that's okay. And that's okay to validate for yourself and to them. But never shame them for opening up to you, because maybe you're the last person in which they want to have that conversation with prior to something maybe deeper going on. And so I truly hope you guys enjoyed, in a way, today's episode. It's hard to say enjoy because I know it's a hard topic. I hope it opened your eyes a little bit and maybe is an important reminder for all of us to just be gentle on ourselves, gentler to other people, and to normalize these conversations. Change happens when we all come together collectively and decide that there's a problem. This is a problem. This is a global crisis. This hasn't been, this isn't anything new. If anything, it's actually very significantly on the rise. And so it needs to be talked about more now than ever. And so I did link a couple resources below today's podcast. So there is a suicide hotline and a couple other resources. I definitely encourage you to keep those handy. Feel free to circulate them with anybody. And just, I just hope you know that you're deserving to seek help if you're needing it. Know that any emotions you're feeling them for a reason. And know that you're never alone and that there's always somebody there and willing to listen. I just know that it can be hard sometimes to believe that and to believe we're worthy of that. So I hope you guys just take a moment to check in with yourself, to acknowledge anything and any feelings that might have surfaced during today's episode. Again, thank you guys so much as always for tuning into today's episode of Rewire to Inspire. All the love from my heart to yours. I genuinely mean it. I care so much about each and every one of you, and I'm so excited to have you as a part of my family and as a part of this community. All the love, you guys. Take care, and I look forward to chatting with you all next week. Thank you all so much for tuning into today's episode of Rewire to Inspire. I absolutely love connecting with you all, so make sure you're following me on Instagram. I am at JessieBrown13. If you enjoyed today's episode, please feel free to leave a review or share with someone you think would enjoy. I look forward to chatting with you all next episode. And remember, get out of your head and into your heart.